All right, everyone. The other day, North Carolina Governor Roycooper really stepped in it. I don't know that this is strategically wise on his particular behalf. Link in the description, archived, of course. He's declaring a state of emergency in the state of North Carolina. You're going to say, well, what happened? Was it a flood, a hurricane? No, it was the Republicans with a veto-proof majority in the House and Senate trying to pass school choice. Methinks this won't go over well with North Carolina voters. This is a Democrat doing what typically a Republican does. You know, you get the veto-proof majority here, so you can just take a hands-off approach, just veto it when it comes to your desk. They'll pass it anyway, and then you can blame it on them if something goes wrong. This is why the Democrats have lost on the issue. School choice is not a hazard. It's not a bad thing. I would note that Roycooper is known to have sent his children to private school. How very interesting. So he's also a hypocrite. He's not just a fool. The Democrats have effectively lost on education as an issue for the first time in several generations. Took a while. They needed a lot of time to overstretch to get past the Republicans' own self-inflicted harm on the educational issue with things like, No Child Left Behind, also known as the No Child Act. The Dems countered with Common Crap, aka Common Core, which was just as bad at lowering standards. I wonder why the educational system in our public schools has declined so rapidly. Could it be that the federal government keeps making more and more stupid fucking rules and getting involved where the state should really be running things? School choice is not a controversial issue. The majority of Americans support the concept. It's simply the concept that you shouldn't be locked down to a certain school based on your geographic location. That's it. So if you live on the edge of the ghetto, but you're closer to the ghetto school, but you're like, hey, but my kid is getting, is really smart. It could become a nuclear physicist or something. Why can't they go to this school that's 3 or 4 blocks further, which is a better performing school? What school choice would do is allow the slow weeding out of the shittiest schools that nobody will want to attend, as schools that are better run will end up necessarily expanding over time. That's what will happen. It's a de-ghettoization of the educational process. By the way, it definitely disproportionately helps kids of inner city schools. They can get to a school that at the very least they'll be literate when they graduate, as opposed to being locked into ghetto incorporated fucking bullshit school. And the Democrats don't want that because they don't want people to have upward mobility. They understand that it starts when you're young, in most cases, so they don't want you to get a good education. This is why we now see leftoids in the United States. I realize that it's just a small number, but I guarantee it'll become a subcultural movement who are moving to ban homeschooling. That's because they want only the wealthy, the upper middle class and above to be able to do the private school. Everyone else has to go to the dwindlingly important elementary school, middle school, and high school that's public and in most parts of the country sucks ass. I would note that there's a racial component to this as well. It's basically educational redlining. Democrats are really pissed about redlining. It's a process of cutting a city apart with non-passable highway systems. So you've locked off the black neighborhood and the white neighborhood, etc. Definitely a real practice. But not having school choice is educational redlining, yet the Dems support it wholeheartedly. Roycooper issuing a state of emergency, which is meant for, hey, there's been a major conflict. Like the street has become a war zone due to a turf war between gangs. State of emergency, military goes in. Big flood, a hurricane. North Carolina's used to this. It's washed away 1,000 people. We need to rebuild 100,000 homes. State of emergency. Hey, an earthquake struck nearby and it caused serious damage. We need more resources in order to figure out how to solve the problem. State of emergency. That's what it's for. It's not for, hey, I'm not going to be able to get my way politically because there's a supermajority in the House and the Senate of the other party. That makes no sense, number one, is at least arguably unconstitutional, number two. Number three, at the very least, is a transparent overreach of that particular power. Number four, there is no emergency. How is passing school choice an emergency? Multiple states have it already, most of which have a better educational attainment rate, I would note, than North Carolina. It doesn't seem to have crippled the educational system. What's crippling it is the federal government. Your state deciding to take more initiative is a good thing, not a bad thing. I wonder why the Democrats keep bonking themselves in the head on the issue, by the way. Normally the Republicans do that. The Democrats have fundamentally lost on critical race theory. They've lost on their fucking porn in schools, their support for that. And by the way, In some of the cases, those books are pornography. They are effectively. You're not going to see anything less crazy than you'd see in certain 18-plus Japanese anime specials, and it's being offered to kids that are under 10, let alone under 18. Okay, high school senior wants to read weird shit. I have less of a problem with that. Let's be rational about this. But you're giving it to grade schoolers. That's not acceptable. It's funny. Most of the time, when the legacy media runs cover for the left on that particular issue, or critical race theory, they'll talk about how innocuous the books are. Well, this book was just about gay people, and obviously, like DeSantis or Abbott or Trump or whatever has a problem with educating kids on such issues. It makes them, they're projecting, they secretly want to suck a cock or something is the insinuation some of the time. But then you actually look at the titles, and then you look at the interiors of the book, and you find out, it might have been more about the whole anal leakage part. It might have had more to do about lubing up and inserting dildos and mutual masturbation of minors and things like that. Or the whole part about the dog sexuality. The dog fetish part might have been why this book got banned for grade schoolers. No, seriously. It's just because it has gay references in it. Pointing out, of course, that if I were to write a book that was basically a doppelganger of one of these, but it only contains straight situations, that one would be banned under Florida and similar laws too. The Democrats, by the way, would not be defending my straight sex book because, of course, that's not going to win them any votes. That's the only reason for it. North Carolina Governor Roycooper should be impeached, in my opinion. He should be removed from office. If the Republicans have a veto-proof majority, then they at least have the ability to impeach him. They may not have the votes to fully remove him, but they can make a point and say, look, come on, even to the lay Democrats out there in North Carolina, which is a state that's basically the purplest you can get. It's a 50-50 swing state at this point. There have got to be at least a minority of liberals out there that comprehend that this particular move is arguably illegal by their governor. And number two, that what he's attempting to stop is something that many of them support. Liberals support school choice too, depending on where they live. People tend to be NIMBYists. If they're in the posh neighborhood, well, they don't really care about school choice. They've already got the posh school. If they live in the low-rent district, where there's the ghetto-ass school with the graffiti outside that has to have 5 resource officers, yeah, maybe sending their kid half a mile further in order to go to the suburban kids' school, which, doesn't serve cockroach-infested swill for lunch, yeah, maybe that's a little bit better. I'm scratching my head as to why the Democrats have taken up this position again. Self-destruction is a Republican thing normally. Well, Roycooper didn't get the memo. I guess his party will have to kick him out or something. He'll become dead weight. He'll be just like Ralph Northam at some point, or Terry McAuliffe. That's about all. Peace out.